Hello and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. I'm Alex Perala. I'm here with my co-host Tony Bitzionis. Hello, Tony.
Alex, hey.
Hi. Today we've got a great episode. We were really lucky to have the opportunity to talk to somebody from EU LISA, which is basically overseeing the European Union's IT infrastructure for its border management and a bunch of other things. But basically, they're the IT agency behind the biometric entry-exit system that everybody's been working towards for years now, and will be implemented any day now. More on that later. But we got to speak to Javier Galbally, who is basically like an engineer for their R&D department. He's a biometrics expert. He studied it academically before getting into his role, and he was a really friendly guy to talk to, and pretty candid as well, which I was really happy about. He definitely didn't say anything provocative about a system that has been delayed many times. So I don't want to overhype the conversation in that regard, but was very open about the role that privacy plays, some of the like political um, push and pull that has to happen once in a while, especially where expertise clashes with lack thereof about biometric technology. And yeah, just like a very insightful like overview of this gigantic project from somebody who's like right in the middle of it. I thought it was a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, and he's just, as you said off the top, he's just a really delightful person to talk to. And it was another one of those, 40 minutes or half hour, however long the conversation was, where we just come out of it learning
Mhm.
so much about a topic that we write about all the time. So that's what I was hoping for when we sat down with Javier, and that's exactly what I got out of it.
Yeah, and it's funny, like I don't know if it's a European thing, but when I try to kind of like gesture towards a you know provocative or controversial issue, he just gives like a perfectly reasonable answer, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's
Yeah, we're
having
not used to that over here.
no, it's refreshing to North American ears.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, as usual, we want to go over a couple little news items, and I have one that is directly relevant. This news just recently came out. The latest signal that this biometric entry-exit system is indeed going to be delayed beyond November 10th, which is what who was saying that? The Commissioner for Home Affairs,
Hmm.
Ilva Johansson, had been saying it would launch November 10th, and then there were kind of like signals in the weeks after she said that well, we haven't announced the launch date yet. um,
Yeah.
and now we have this report from The Guardian citing diplomat sources who were basically like, we don't think this is going to launch in November. Um, and they were saying that they're actually going to brief officials this week as we record this on contingency plans. And that includes, this one really jumped out at me. They're possibly thinking about letting people enroll their biometrics ahead of arriving at the border rather than at the border. So that could be through an app or something. So that's pretty interesting from a security perspective.
Right.
Um, and I bet some listeners of ours are going to have opinions about that. Um, but yeah, I mean, we kind of called it a while ago. We didn't
Yeah.
think this was going to launch. It's been delayed many times before, but it's like super complicated.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most complicated state building infrastructure projects in history. So,
Yeah.
I can't fault anybody for not making it on their ambitious timeline. I don't mean my little remarks in that way. I just
No, I
I
mean,
like
you
doing my
even at the beginning of our talk with Javier, I think he even sort of sets the stage a little bit And one thing that I remember that stood out to me right off the bat was how he just frames it from like like using the United States as an example. There's 59 countries in the EU, I believe, and in the United States, you can pass from state to state just driving through, while in the EU, you're passing through however many different borders, over however many different borders. And it's a complicated network of policies and governments and officials that needs to be taken into consideration with a system like this. So, um, yeah, it's not surprising. It's going to be ready when it's ready, I suppose.
And just a little fact check in real time for you, Tony. There are
Sorry,
20,
your mic's cutting out, Alex. Sorry.
there are there are 27 member countries. Doesn't change your overall point. It's complicated. That's still a lot of countries to get on board.
Well, now that you put it that way, that doesn't seem so hard.
Yeah, it seems simple.
They should have had this done a long time ago.
Do you know how I fact checked you while we were talking?
Um, with your little encyclopedia there you got in the background.
I used ChatGPT.
Oh, right. Segue. Teeing
Mm.
that up.
Mhm.
Well, then, speaking of ChatGPT, the little story I'd like to highlight this week is one concerning ChatGPT 4 and some researchers at a university in Norway, along with, I believe, like a fellow institute, conducted a study where they tested ChatGPT 4 on facial recognition, age estimation, and gender identification. And the results were pretty interesting. I mean, so they tested it in a data set of 5,400 air quotes balanced images for the gender recognition portion, and it achieved a 100% accuracy rate on that front, which
Mm.
is incredible. And it's also better than other models that were specifically trained for gender recognition. So that is cool in and of itself. It also did pretty well in age estimation, about 74%, just a bit over 74%. Uh, I don't have a standard of comparison for that one on what other models do, but along with the age estimation and then its facial recognition tests, which it achieved a 95.15% accuracy rate, um, it's impressive because it wasn't trained or tuned to do any of these things specifically.
Right.
Now, most of our listeners will know already that 95.15% accuracy in facial recognition is not particularly good.
No, it's kind
Um,
of bad.
it's
But
bad.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's bad. And I mean, we're talking like 99.75 and up is what a lot of models strive for. And I'm probably wrong about that. It's probably even higher than that. But so the key thing to take away from here is it's really interesting that it's able to achieve these accuracy rates, even if they are well below industry standard, because it wasn't trained or tuned to do any of these things.
Mhm.
And for the same reasons that it's interesting, it's also kind of problematic because it used different reasoning for its matches. For the facial recognition test, they used a fairly common data set that's over 13,000 images, and that contains both genuine pairs and imposter pairs to test the systems. And what ChatGPT 4 was doing in its reasoning was it was comparing facial expressions or certain features. And researchers pointed that out as a flawed method, especially in high stakes scenarios where two people sharing a facial expression is not a good basis for a match. So all that being said, it's still pretty interesting. It also there were issues with it divulging sensitive biometric information. So no, ChatGPT 4 isn't about to replace facial recognition models, but it's just kind of neat that it taught itself or it learned how to perform some of these tasks at like a pretty admirable clip.
Yeah. It makes me think of a recent comments that the former OpenAI CTO made when they were talking about their new reasoning model that they put out, which is beyond the one that was tested in this study. But when it came out, the CTO at the time, Mira Murati, was talking about it, and she said something like, um, "It's like helping us to learn how it thinks." Like
Mm,
it was like a comment that be belied.
relied.
No, I don't think that's right. It was a comment that just sort of illustrated that they don't know how it works. Like
Hmm.
they can't, not in like a fine-grained way. I mean,
Yeah.
they built this thing and they have a basic idea of how it should work, but they don't understand its reasoning from the outside. And so it's like, yeah, it's just gonna do some stuff, and we they might not expect it.
Yeah, I mean that just conjures up the image, like the sci-fi image of they've created something and now they're observing it to understand how it thinks and how it learns.
It's some Ghost in the Shell type stuff almost. Not really, but I
Th-
mean and I'm talking about the original. The
Not the
original.
Scarlett Johansson one, right?
No, that the new one I watched, and it actually has kind of the opposite message of the original, which is really infuriating to me. But the original was like about an AI system that has these emergent qualities that basically make it become sentient and go out of control. And it's a great movie. I recommend it to listeners. But anyway,
Yep.
I digress. Let's get to our very fascinating conversation with Javier. Okay, we are now joined by Javier Galbally. He is with EU LISA, serving as a capability building officer in R&D. And Javier, we're very excited to chat with you because we cover what's going on in Europe with border control and stuff like that all the time. And EU LISA comes up more and more as a key player in a lot of that stuff. So as North Americans, we're like very ignorant about European politics and how all of these things work. So we have a lot of questions for you. So thank you
Okay,
very much for joining us.
no problem. Thank you for having me.
The best place to start, probably a lot of our listeners will be curious about some basic stuff, just like we are. So can you, at a basic level, just explain what EU LISA is and what your role with EU LISA is?
Yeah, so the EU-LISA is an European agency. There are many European agencies. It was born as a need once the Schengen space was created. As you know, I mean, the story or history of Europe is a bit different to the one in uh, the US. So we had all these different member states that today uh, are the member states of the EU, and they had internal borders.
Mhm.
You needed, it's not like in the US where you could always go from one state to another without any borders. In Europe, until not that long ago, there were internal borders to go from Spain, for instance, to France, to Italy, to Germany, and you had to cross those borders, show your passport,
Mm.
and cross the borders. Uh, at one point in Europe, we took the decision, and I think it was a really good decision to eliminate those internal borders and create one unique border while all member states still remain as independent countries and with their, let's say, laws and their governments and all that, totally independent, but to abolish or remove the internal borders. So now you can freely move from one to another without having to show your passport or any ID. You can enter. There is one common border, which is the Schengen border. That is, it was named like that after EU treaty, the Schengen Treaty. And when those borders were uh, removed, and there was one common border, then each member state is managing not their own border, but a part of the common European border.
Right.
Right.
So, and there was the need. before that common border was created, each individual member state, each individual country was managing their own border. At that point, when the full Schengen border was created, there was the need for the different member states to share the data of who was coming in and out of the Schengen border, because it was one unique border. And Spain just has, let's say, 1/5 is managing 1/5 of that border, and France another fifth. I'm just making up a percentage of the border. So if someone that needs, for example, from the US comes into Schengen and comes through Spain, he's free to move because he wants to visit Madrid and have some sangria there, and then he wants to move to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower. He's free to do that, and then he can fly back to the US through the Paris airport. However, when he flies back, French authorities need to know that that person came in on a certain date through Madrid airport. So French authorities, Spanish authorities, Italian, Germans, all the different member states in the EU sharing this common border need to be able to share the data of who is coming in and out of the common border, and also access that data. So there was the need to have a centralized database. And with that need, the European Commission saw the need to create an agency which would be in charge of managing those IT systems. It started that way with Schengen, and that the border management, or due to the removal of the internal borders, EU-LISA was created exactly for that purpose, to manage the large-scale IT system so that all the member states can share that data and have access to the data, query that data. It started with one system. Now we are managing 6 different systems. But the initial, the origin, let's say, of EU-LISA as a European agency was that one, and that is the main mandate that we have as an agency, is to manage those large-scale IT systems. Like in the US, you have something similar, like a US visit, I think it is, or.
To be honest, we're in Toronto, so we don't know.
Okay.
Okay. But we get the point. So, and can I just ask, you said that there are now 6 different systems that it manages. So what are those all to do with border control, or can you explain?
Well, we not all of them. They are all kind of not totally independent, but we operate in 3 different domains. Maybe I could say even 4 domains now. One, and I would say it's the main one, is border management, and that is what I explained before. So who is coming in and out of the common Schengen border? Second domain is law enforcement, and this is also related to the removal of the internal borders. So right now, let's say there is a criminal that commits a crime in Italy. He is free to move to Germany and he will not be stopped. However, there needs to be kind of a law enforcement cooperation between all the member states to know that that person is sicked, so that the German government, the German law enforcement authorities are aware that that person is sick in Italy.
Right.
So that is the second domain. Also, coming from the fact that criminals, let's say, or that all citizens can move freely. It is the same if there is, for example, a missing child somewhere, and then this information will go into one of the systems managed by EU-LISA. This child has gone missing because he could go missing in Estonia and be found in Greece, for example. So that is the second domain. So border management, law enforcement, and the third one is migration, asylum seekers. So migration, like for example, with the war in Ukraine, with the invasion from Russia, for example, there are many Ukrainian citizens that are seeking asylum in Europe. So this again within Schengen. So that is the third domain. And I said a fourth one in which we are starting, which is, and it is also related to law enforcement in a way, it's judicial cooperation between the different judicial systems in each of the member states. So to share, for example, criminal records or to communicate with each other in a, let's say, efficient way. So those are basically the 3/4, as we are starting in judicial cooperation as well, where the systems that we manage are designed for.
Right. Okay. Thank you for explaining that. And your role as capability building officer, what does that entail? What exactly do you do for EU LISA?
So I work within the capability building sector, and we are a small team within that sector, which is called research and innovation. And we have three main objectives within the team. First one is kind of do some what we call technology monitoring. So checking how technology and technologies that are relevant, especially the ones relevant for the agency within the business of border management, law enforcement, and managing. We are an IT agency in the end, even though we are serving border management, or basically our core business is IT, is the managing of these systems. So technologies that can be of relevance for the IT systems, doing a monitoring of what is going on, what industry is presenting new solutions for these types of systems. This technology can be from cybersecurity. As you can imagine, data protection is a key issue. Cybersecurity, protection against cyber attacks is a key issue. For example, now cloud technologies is a very buzz technology, and we are still not going to the cloud, but we are exploring our possibilities. So that is part of our of what we do in research and innovation. See if it can fit the business of the agency, how it can be done, and so on. Another very important technology is biometrics. So that is something that we scan and we are up to date with. We also do pilot projects within the agency or in cooperation with other institutions. So we kind of foster innovation within the agency through pilot projects to check, test these new technologies and see how they could actually be applied, if they could be applied, if it makes sense within the operational environment that we run. And the last one is engagement with stakeholders. Stakeholders can be other public institutions from the EU or from North America. I was putting before the example of the US, but also Canada as well, of course. Stakeholders are public institutions. It's also industry, very important, as we work a lot with contractors to run our systems, and also with academia and research, which are usually the ones which are in the forefront of all these technological innovation. I mean, so we do those three things, and they are not independent as usual. They are all linked together. So yeah, the technology monitoring, doing pilot projects or promoting innovation within the agency, and the stakeholder engagement, and that is what we do.
Javier, so you spoke about all the different technology that you guys are using across the different systems that you monitor and you track. You also recently published a series of technology briefs. Can you just speak a little bit about what prompted that? Is it just to make sure that you're keeping up to date with innovation, or is it to do with ensuring common practices across all the systems? What was the motivation behind those technology briefs?
Yeah. So up to this year, we were publishing one technology monitoring report, which was quite extensive, kind of long report on one of these technologies. Each year we would select one also based on needs or feedback from, for example, member states, what they would be interested in, or technologies relevant to the agency. And we would write these long reports, which are useful, but then we kind of saw it was not that many people would go in deep into the report, or people have less and less time to read a report which is 60 or 70 pages on one specific
I suspect this is what
technology.
happens with my emails. When I don't get replies, I think it's just I did it again. It's too long.
It's too well written.
Yeah, people right now are the Twitter based or X based, right?
Yeah,
Whatever number of characters it is, or
yeah.
TikTok 30 seconds, or
Short form,
so.
yeah.
Okay, these technology monitoring reports, I feel they are very useful. The ones that we've been doing, and we are still doing. It's not something that we have abandoned, but we thought, and especially it came as a suggestion, let's say, from our executive director, to have also a shorter, more direct format for these reports that would just present a summary of a technology and also why it is important for the agency, and would present in a way uh, the stance of the agency, or the position of the agency, why it is important, where we would like to go, where we would need to use that technology, why it is beneficial in the end for the traveler citizens, which is in the end the final objective and mission of the agencies, to provide a service to the citizens.
Right.
So we thought of this new kind of shorter format, which is the technology briefs, and we to jump into the pool to see if there was water or no water. The first one we decided to go with biometrics. Why? Well, myself, as I said, research and innovation is a small team. I am basically almost one half of the team. So my full background is on biometrics. I did my PhD on biometrics, and before joining EULISA, I was working for the European Commission, also providing uh, support knowledge on biometric technology. So it seemed like a natural first topic to tackle with these technology briefs. And so we wrote this one to see what the public would think about it, and if they would like it or find it useful, and so on. So
Yeah.
the feedback that we have received is quite positive. So now there will be a second one.
Great.
Not on
That's good.
biometrics, different topic.
So that kind of you kind of answered my next question there, which was going to be where does EULISA turn, or where do you turn to for biometric expertise? And it sounds like you yourself have a long and strong background in that, but do you look outside and consult with anybody, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, internally, I am one of the persons that has this type of background within
Right.
EULISA. In the operations department, there are quite a few people that have also a strong background in biometrics, but we work with contractors. So just uh, we work with some. I guess I can say names of companies here, no problem, right?
Yeah,
So just to maybe it's like free publicity or anything like that, but that's
sure,
it's
that's great.
no secret that we work with IDEMIA,
Mm.
and they have also a very strong expertise in that. And we also participate to conferences with biometric like academia and research centers. For example, we helped or we co-organized, collaborated in the organization of the European Association for Biometrics. Their main conference is the Research Project Conference, where different EU-funded projects come and present their results. So we also participated there. And yeah, basically that is where we gain the knowledge from in biometrics. There is internally, I think we do have that capability, but also contractors, so industry, and also in research.
Right. And when you're like you obviously have a lot of familiarity with the technology, your team I'm sure does, but we see often with large scale projects, people like the public, for lack of a better term, will sometimes have concerns like privacy concerns, sometimes stemming from not fully understanding how biometric technology works. Sometimes like um, I would say like more grounded concerns, I suppose. But when you're designing or helping to advise on these systems, do you have to push back ever against, let's say, some sort of political factor that says we don't want biometric technology involved, or like you know what I mean, like a data privacy concerns or anything like that? Or is that somebody else's job to deal with those things, and you just kind of do the work and you don't have to worry about any the politics, so to speak?
I mean, all the time, basically. I mean, I have learned, I come from a, let's say, pure scientific background.
Mhm.
When I did my PhD, and then I still worked for 3 years at university as a postdoc.
Mm.
And there, my only concern was how to make this system better without taking into account many other factors.
Mm.
Then, when I joined the European Commission and now EULISA, I have realized it is not all about accuracy or all about how to measure the biometric quality. That is still very important, but there are many other factors
Mm.
that need to be taken into account that when I started working for public institutions, I thought were not important. And they are just as important as the technical factors, purely technical. So I have learned through the years to understand that even if it's a technology, and even if many decisions are not taken only and should not be taken only purely on the technical factors. So yes, I do try to, I'm not sure if educate is the correct word, or to show how the technology works and what it can do and what it cannot do. And when there are concerns that are not based on real, on how the technology works, or concerns about something that the technology might do that is not able to do, I do try to push back on that. But there are other cases in which, for example, data protection, I would like to have all the data possible to test and evaluate the systems. However, I have learned that that has to be taken into account. That is a factor. You cannot do whatever you want with data. If there need to be some safeguards in place, and it is important, even if it the final objective is, and the institution doing the whatever it is, processing the data, is fully, or you fully trust it, because trust is a very important word for all these matters. You have to trust who is building the systems, managing the systems, or processing data. Even if you fully trust that source, you need, for example, to be aware that there needs to be safeguards and a number of procedures that need to be followed. And I am just putting data protection as an example because I know it is one of the, let's say, hot topics and one of the difficulties or bottlenecks that we find when trying to develop or improve, evaluate the systems. But still, yes, my, let's say, engineering technical soul would like to, yes, treat it as a purely technical problem, but in the end there are people, there are certain member states, politics that come into place, and you have to take them into account and account for them. That's the way it goes.
That's really interesting. And also, I will add that this is not a unique problem to EULISA's work. Like, I feel like this has come up again and again in conversations Tony and I have had talking to biometrics vendors. We'll talk to really, really smart people who have great technology, and they
training, let's say training and dissemination of the technology. Making people who are taking decisions and do not necessarily need to know everything about every technology, because nobody knows that. Nobody is capable of knowing everything about all technologies, me included. I have to do these technology monitoring reports, and there are certain technologies that sometimes I have a kind of a overall quite high level knowledge about it, but whenever I have to go deeper into that technology, I have to consult with experts. I have to really read a lot, and people taking decisions, they cannot know everything about all technologies at all. So dissemination of how technologies work and what they can do and what they cannot, and also from the side of the people taking the decisions, knowing who to trust. And again, trust is it comes up, the word, that who to trust, who to listen to, where to get the information from. That is also very important. But not only for this dissemination for people taking the decisions, but also for like the regular citizen understanding or having some understanding of how the technology, in this case biometrics, works. I think it would be very important. That is so, for example, this podcast, to me, it's a great initiative because it helps doing that. People taking decisions, people developing the technology as well, who may understand perfectly well how the technology and the algorithms work, but they are missing, as I was missing at the beginning, and I am still learning, other factors that have to be taken into account when you go into a real operational environment and you have to really implement those algorithms. And it's not just numbers, but there is a person that is coming to the border, and there are many other factors, how user friendly it is, how to make it understandable for that person and for the border guard as well. People using that technology, it is important to make them understand when they receive what the technology can do, and when they receive a reply from that technology, to be able to interpret it correctly. So just that dissemination training, but I guess that also comes with time, as with any other technology. First time, I guess, we had a smartphone in our hand and we said, where are the buttons? There are no buttons here. So maybe it took us a bit to get used to it, and now kids that are 3 years old, you give them a smartphone and then they start doing how to go through the pictures in a natural way or zoom in pictures, and you say, where did you learn that? It took me 5 years to get used to that. So I guess that with time as well, we will all get used to it.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to go back to the question about well, like kind of what we were just saying about all the other factors you have to deal with that are not just technological. We also have been seeing a lot of news lately about the AI Acts in the European Union. Do regulations like that have a direct impact on the kind of work that you're doing? Like, is that something you have to track and pay close attention to?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, any new regulation, we have to comply with it, and we are the first. We have to set the example, actually.
Right.
Not just EU-LISA. I mean the European institutions, other agencies as well. As I said at the beginning, we are a European agency, but there are many others. There is the European agency, medicine agency. There is the for food safety. There is the agency for space. I don't know. There are many of them, and the European Commission, who is the one proposing these regulations that are voted in the Parliament and then approved. We are the first ones that have to give example and comply with those regulations. So does the AI Act affect us? Yes, myself in particular. So the work that I do within the agency, not that much. But we are in the middle of doing a self-assessment of which of our systems will be affected by the AI Act and how to make them compliant with the AI Act. And that has been part of our work in the last year, has been doing a round of consultations internally within EU-LISA, especially in the operations department, to see where we are using AI. For example, biometrics uses AI. The comparison engine that we have will be using AI, and we have for the future the plan to use AI to analyze different statistics within some of the systems, and the AI Act will impact those, and we have to make sure that those will follow the rules or the regulation that has been set by the Act. So yeah.
Javier, so we've covered Estonia on our sites for a while. I think we have articles dating back to 2015 about Estonian elections and online voting and digital national digital ID initiatives in Estonia from a few years ago, not to mention the number of Estonian vendors that we write about. Is that part of the reason EU-LISA is headquartered there, or can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I moved to Estonia 2 years ago.
Okay.
Estonia, as it is known, because
Yeah.
it is kind of the sandbox, the testing for all these electronic initiatives and working here. I have to say that it all works quite flawlessly. All
Okay.
these EID and all linked together, and yeah, it is a great example. Yeah, small scale, let's say, because it is not a big country, but I think it's big enough to show that all this can be implemented. Of course, it will have some, whenever it is a bigger country, probably other constraints or challenges, but here they have shown that it can be done. Now, why EU-LISA is here? I think it was decided in 2011 to put the headquarters here in Tallinn, while the operational site for historical reasons is in Strasbourg, because that's where the first system was initially placed, the Schengen Information System, and then from there it started growing and it remained there. Probably the fact that Estonia is so much advanced in electronic ID and management and of electronic identity management is so advanced, probably played a factor into putting the headquarters here. I am not sure, really, I cannot tell why the headquarters were here. This was I guess also some political decision, because since the EU, as I said, it has many member states, the Commission likes to spread out where the agencies are placed. So Estonia had no agency I think that probably also that played a factor into bringing the headquarters here. Also, there was a big commitment from the government, I believe, to host the agency, and they had the commitment to build a new building for the agency here, which is where I am at the moment, and I have to say the building is really great. So I think that it all played a factor. Why in the end it was decided, I cannot tell. As I say, there are always many factors that come into these decisions.
I think we have a little bit of time for maybe one more question, which I have, which is kind of conceptual, but I'm just curious what you have to say about this. We've been talking to people in Europe and people, by which I mean vendors in the US mostly, and looking at things like the emergence of digital IDs and mobile IDs and things like that. And one thing that we've kind of seen as a theme is that in the US, there's very little regulatory oversight or structure around these things, and these things are being pushed forward by basically the private sector. And then in Europe, there is a lot of regulatory structure and possibly a lot of bureaucracy, but also a lot of progress. So I'm curious, do you think working there within the structure of the European Union, do you feel like you are able to make progress at a good pace? Is it set up in such a way that it's really pushing innovation? Or do you think, for example, the American model of just let the companies lead the way and regulate afterwards is maybe the faster way to get to like to make technological progress? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I think you perfectly explained the two models. I think regulation is necessary, as I said before. You have to put safeguards. However, it has a risk in trying to regulate technology, in the sense that I think we should regulate what technology is used for and what we should be able and not be able to do, but not how the technology should work towards that objective, because it's very difficult to know how technology will evolve. For example, if we come back to your example of the VHS, okay?
Yeah.
And how it changed from VHS to CDs, and then from CDs to current memory drives. Well, actually, not even that, we have passed that and now we are in the cloud. So I think we should make sure that there is a regulation to know what we can store in there, for example, or what type of information is okay to put into a VHS or a CD or and what is not, or how to protect that technology. You can attack or not that technology. However, saying that whatever you store, it has to be in a tape, that would have prevented from putting it into a CD, which is actually a better way of doing it, or
Right.
prevented from putting it into a the memory drive, or right now on demand in the cloud.
Right.
How technology evolves or makes it difficult for technology to improve.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because
you
it is
start,
very,
you start
it is.
from,
Mhm.
like you start from first principles, basically. Like it can be used for this and not this, and you get there however you want. Whatever's the best way, go that way. Right? Is that kind
Yes,
of what you're saying?
yes, I think, for example, there are certain principles like data protection. You have to be able to protect the data, but that should not prevent from going from the VHS to the CD. It's
Right.
just maybe the safeguards to protect that data are different. It is also true that if you just let technology flow and do whatever, and without, you have to, it takes a while to understand what technology can do and cannot do, and where the risks are. So I think it is also necessary to have some time to reflect. For example, now with the AI, what can it do? What can't do? How we make regulation that protects in the end the persons, the citizens. But it is a matter of time in the end, of understanding the technology and understanding the risks. And for this, it cannot be from day zero.
Right.
So yeah, probably innovation. I'm all for technology and innovation, but we need to, which is find a balance to the speed at which technology evolves, so that we can adapt to it and properly regulate what needs to be regulated. So better the US model or the European model?
The balance,
Usually
right?
virtue is in the middle, right? That's
Yeah.
how it's said in English. Maybe perhaps here we are over regulating in a way or in a sense, and perhaps in the US it is under regulating. I'm not sure. Time will tell.
That's a great note to end on. And again, what you said earlier about the importance of education and getting every stakeholder to understand what is going on with these technologies and the context in which they're being put to use is really important to us as well. So we really appreciate you coming on the show and talking to us about this huge complex work that's going on in Europe, and it was super fascinating. I really enjoyed this. So thank you for coming on the show.
Yes. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Javier.
Thank you for
Validating.
inviting me and
Yeah.
for letting me try to explain the complexity, because it is really complex, of the reality here in the EU and border management.
Yeah. We write about it really often. It comes up weekly, if not, daily. And this really helped providing a little bit more context. And after listening to your incredible answers, I'm even more surprised it took you 5 minutes to get your camera sorted out.
Thanks again, Javier. This was great.
Thank you.
No problem.